You know what really makes us mad is wasting money on CDs with only one or two good songs.
Yeah. Tell them about punk.
What's up, posers? Welcome to punklottopod. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley.
And I'm your other co-host, Dylan Hensley.
And this is the show where we assign a year and choose one punk, hardcore, emo, or punk-adjacent album from that year to talk about. Today is a Patreon-sponsored episode, so we are joined by our good friend Jason, who you last heard on the show, to talk about Gaunt. Today, what are we talking about, Dylan?
We are talking about the 1994 album Products and Accessories by Sparkmarker.
Going deep cut on this one. Band that we talk about it, but neither one of us had ever heard of before, or at least never heard before getting ready for the show. And it's really good. It's a really good episode. I really enjoyed the conversation we had with Jason. And if you head over to our Patreon, you too can sponsor an episode that is under our $10 tier. That means you get to pick what album we talk about on the show, potentially come on the show if you'd like. And it can be from any period of time. We are pretty open with these, and they're really fun. I love doing these. I genuinely love doing these. These are a lot of fun. And the way that would work, I would recommend you just sign up $10 for 1 month, and then you can drop down to the dollar tier or off the Patreon altogether, because we're just thankful for the little bit you gave us. But if you are interested to stick around and listen to at the $1 tier all of our bonus audio, let's see, this week we didn't pre-discuss what we're doing again, so it's a mystery to me. I feel like we may have done a chart dive on 94 before, so that's probably not what we're gonna do. We'll have to do some research on that, but we might get like an I'm listening or a news of the world out of us this week. We should also see the return of the new release Friday bonus audio. I have a few things on my calendar that are coming out in January, and I have enough things that came out within the last week or two that I could probably make a decent little audio clip for it. So be on the lookout for that. And also got another little series coming up on the Patreon, but that's from my college program that I'm in, where I have to make a podcast. So cool. I could just give them this one. But that's at patreon.com/punklottopod. And we're on all the social medias, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at punklottopod, Gmail, punklottopod@gmail.com, and Substack, punklottopod.substack.com. All punklottopod at everything. Voicemail line 202-688-PUNK. Call us and leave us a message. And yeah, I think that is everything. So thank you so much, and enjoy this conversation with Jason. So we are joined here again by our friend Jason. Jason, welcome back to the show.
Hello. How are you guys doing tonight?
Pretty good. We had you on. Was it in December or was it November? I think it was November. One of the two. We had you on to talk about Gaunt.
Right.
And you decided to this is for everyone listening, this is a Patreon sponsored episode, so you decided to hold on to it for another month and do another one.
You let it ride.
Yeah. It took me a while to figure out what I wanted to choose, and this one that I actually chose was just kind of within the last week anyway. There were a couple other ones I wanted to do, but I think they were just too obscure that there wouldn't be really much to talk about except for like the songs themselves on the album.
Yeah.
So like there wouldn't be any history, nothing to talk about there. So.
Yeah. Yeah, you chose an interesting one for sure. We'll save what that is. But what were you considering besides this one? Unless you are going to keep that for yourself and maybe do it again in the future.
No, I mean if it's people will forget by then. I was going to do Cadillac Blindside, These Liquid Lungs, which was a Minneapolis band that kind of came in after Dillinger 4, and they kind of had a Dillinger 4 meets the Get Up Kids kind of sound.
Oh, wow.
And then, but So that one, they were on, I can't remember, maybe Fueled by Ramen, something like that. So there was maybe a little bit of a story there. But then the other one was Amp 167, who is also from Minneapolis. And they put out an album called Repoed in 2000. And that's probably about as much information as you're going to get. But they were really good. They were kind of a mid-tempo melodic hardcore band. They do a Dig Nasty cover at the end of the album. So, but yeah, I think I only, out of those two bands, I think I saw each one of them once. It was kind of one of those things that were, at the time, I just wasn't going to shows. But yeah, they were, I just wanted to pick something from, from around me that time around. But then I was like, I don't really have much to talk about these albums when I was like listening to them.
Yeah, there's some bands where it's like, this band's great, I love their records, but there's like not a story to it or really even much information. So yeah, it kind of gets hard to talk about unless you're like really good at talking about music, which is always
right.
I don't think that's my strength.
Which by now we should be better at, but you know.
Yeah, over 200 episodes and we're still like, yeah, this I like it.
Yeah.
The riff is like really heavy.
I feel that. Yeah. I've been reviewing albums and records from 1992, and I still don't know how to talk about music unless I'm throwing like genre words and this band sounds like this band.
Right. Yeah. Comparisons, which works to a degree.
People complain about making band comparisons in reviews, but they work. Like, if you have a lot of them, and if they're accurate, then it communicates what you're trying to say, rather than trying to be like the timbre of the guitar, meaning that, the ways that you can describe music in non-music theory or like non-production technical terms don't mean anything. And then like music theory and like production terms don't mean anything to people who don't know music theory or production. So, I feel like the band comparison is fair.
Right.
Have you ever read reviews where you were like, so well written, I still don't know what it sounds like?
Yeah.
I think a band comparison, or at very least a genre comparison, is pretty useful when it comes to that kind of thing. So yeah, I never understood the people who were like, don't compare us to other bands. It's like, you may need to be accurate, but also like some bands sound like other things to other people. Not everyone has the same frame of reference to draw from. So it could be like, this band reminds me of so and so, and they're like, most of the average person reading the article may not know that band. But yeah, writing about music's hard, and I'm amazed at the people who do it well. And I think you do it well, Jason. I think you're a great writer. Dylan's a good writer too. Dylan should write more.
Hard.
It's hard. Writing is hard.
See, my skill is just having an excessive, just a non-ending thing I can refer to. That's my skill.
Going back to the band thing, comparing bands, I always figured as long as you're using something to describe the music or the genre and why you think these two bands sound alike, they're fast melodic hardcore bands, so they sound like, Lifetime meets, Strung Out or something. Mm-hmm. Not something like that. As long as the two bands you're comparing are in with what you're trying to describe is usually the best way to go. I hate it when people throw it sounds like, I don't even know, Britney Spears meets Deicide, or something like that. And you're just like, well, that tells me absolutely nothing of what you're trying to tell me.
Yeah, they're the obtuse kind of trying to be funny type of comparison. Right. Yeah. Though I do love it when you can find one that it is it's like, whoa, I actually do get what that means. Those are fun. But
yeah, but then again, it has to actually be that. It has to be that kind of out there music to where it's
right,
where they're going for something so specific. I mean, I understand, I understand the other side of it too, because I do remember the Blogspot era of the Mad Libs reviews of bands where it was just the same phrase like crushing blackened crust sounds like cursed black breath. Like, well, no shit. It sounds like cursed and black breath. If it's blackened crust, what else would it sound like? If it doesn't sound like that, I don't probably want to listen to it.
Dylan is calling out a specific blog that probably doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
I don't even remember its name anymore, but it definitely was like, it was the same paragraph with just like down
one
to the
band
word
different each time.
Yeah. Always compared everything to Hot Snakes, and they never sounded like Hot Snakes too.
Yeah.
That was the other one. They don't sound like that.
Yeah, I bet you if I think about it long enough, I could probably come up with a name. I got one, but I know that one, they didn't do a lot of the blackened crust, so what's that say? But yeah.
I genuinely can't remember the name of it.
It was multiple different. The guy kept getting taken down because of.
Yeah, and people would like copy and paste from other blogs and just put it on their blog, and you're just like, okay.
Yeah, that was always annoying too. And then some blogs wouldn't write anything.
Yeah. There's no genre, anything. They just, you had to be like, that looks like a cool album cover.
It's like the whole discography is in a zip share. It's like, oh, okay. By the way, I still get emails randomly from Mediafire that say someone attempted to log into your account. I get them regularly. I'm like, let them have it, I guess. Like, it's Mediafire. I don't even know what I have. I don't even know the password to that thing anymore.
I didn't know it still existed.
Yeah. I feel like Dropbox took its place.
I still get the Mediafire email that's like, hey, we haven't seen you in a while. They're very needy.
Who is the person running Mediafire's outreach?
What was the one? Was it Mega Upload or Rapid Share? What was the one that was involved in like a money laundering scheme?
That was
with
Mega.
Like, who was that? Was it Swizz Beats?
No. Yeah.
It was that guy too. He lived. I don't know where he lived. He lived in like an island country, and like he thought he was a big shot. His name like Kim something. Man.
The Mega. Oh, there's a Wikipedia. The Mega Upload legal case. It was the owner of Kim.com.
Kim.com. That's what it was.
Hong Kong Customs froze more than $300 million in assets belonging to the company. There was someone famous that was involved in it too.
and then everyone else panicked. That was the other thing. Like Rapid Share panicked, limited like however many you could upload, or Zippy Share panicked. Mediafire was the only one who didn't really seem to panic too much. I guess they were like, no, we're really sending files to each other. We're sending Office documents. And then Dropbox was like the one to live. Yeah. Oh, the blog days.
I think the only blog I go to now is I Hate the 90s.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'll find stuff on there that I'm looking for. But otherwise, all the rest of them have kind of dried up. And
it's like, Sophie's Floorboard is like the only one I feel like that still kind of regularly posts anything. But it's like we don't really need them to download anymore. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because everything's either on Bandcamp or Spotify at this point, or YouTube. So.
Right. Yeah, because like the stuff that I'll find on I Hate the 90s is stuff like you can't find except through that Stiffy file share or whatever it is.
Do you have a SoulSeek? I still have.
Oh yes, I do. I use it I haven't been on it lately, like I would say in a month, but yeah, I figured out there's like times of the day if you want to find stuff. If you're looking for stuff like in Europe, you have to figure out when people are like in the afternoon or late evening or early evening, and that's when you find like the European stuff. Like it's like 6 p.m. their time, so it's whatever my time. I got to get up and start looking for stuff. And the weekends is usually better than
I use it to get the audio for the show, really. I guess I probably shouldn't say that, because then now RIAA is going to come get me. I mean, the way I play music on this show is probably more than they would want anyway. Though, what is it? They say that there's like no actual amount. You know, that myth of like, only play 30 seconds, only play 15 seconds. It's not true.
Yeah. I mean, they can go after you for any amount of it. And arguing fair use cases can be tricky. Yeah. Because it's kind of like one of those things that's like, well, it sort of exists because of how we can interpret the Constitution, but there's not really like laws that support it. It's just kind of legal precedent. So
yeah, criticism is usually one that tends to be fairly safe when it comes to using music. I probably use too much, but whatever. If the show disappears one day,
yeah,
it's because we got flagged. Because Atlantic finally figured out I've been using a Jawbox song from one of their albums for 200 episodes.
Did Jawbox get any when that reissued the remaster version? Did they get any kind of control over the masters in that deal, or was that just a licensed kind of like one-time thing? I don't remember how that panned out.
I think they have some kind of ownership over the second one, the self-titled, because I think No Idea like reissued that one. But yeah, I don't know what, because there was the remastered version with a different cover. Yeah, I don't know. I assume they got a little something, but it's not like Atlantic was doing anything with it.
Yeah, like, I mean, they would have had something to do with it happening, because why would Atlantic do anything with it? Like, it would entirely be up to Jawbox to be like, hey, we want this remastered and reissued because it's important to us, not because it's going to make you guys any money.
I guess getting the masters back from a major label is quite the ordeal. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and the person talking was like, yeah, I needed to send all this stuff into like the court, and then the court would go over it to see if it was okay, and then it was a whole thing just to get the masters back for like one album, and then if you have multiple albums, you got to reapply for each album. It was pretty crazy.
There is some like time frame too, like if a label doesn't do anything with it after a certain amount of time, the rights revert back, but I don't know exactly. It's like, it was weird.
I don't know. That might even depend too on the contract. I don't know that there's anything statutory that.
Yeah. I have a buddy who was gonna reissue something on vinyl, and it was like a Trust Kill record, and he messaged the guy who, Chad Truskill used to run the label. I love that was a thing. He just called the person their label name as their last name. But the
owner of Truskill Records was Josh Grable.
Josh Grable. Okay.
Yeah, Josh Grable. And I don't know.
Maybe it wasn't Truskill. What's the other one? Who owned
Ferret?
That was Carl somebody.
Yeah.
There was one. I know there is one that you're thinking of, but I cannot think of it right offhand.
Whoever it was, it was the Trust. Yeah, okay, so it'd be Josh. He would have messaged him and he was like, yeah, I own the rights now because it's been so long. Just give me $200 and we'll do it. And my friend was like, I don't know about that. I don't know if you're right. I don't think you own it yet.
He just has a FLAC copy of it, and he's like, oh yeah, I have it. Send it to you.
Send me $200. Like, that's a real that's a low licensing fee. But the licensing isn't even really that expensive. Well, depending on
that's the run in, like, where it gets so expensive when you're dealing with like Universal, because for Universal to even look at it, they're like, well, we're gonna have to get our lawyers to look at it, and they cost it's just $30,000 for them to even look at it, to write you a contract to do a 2000 copy pressing of a record.
And I do that same friend, he even tried to reach out to Comedy Central because he wanted to repress the Mitch Hedberg stuff, because like it had never been done on vinyl, and they emailed him back and just said it would cost too much for us to draw up the contract and have our lawyers look at it than what we would make off of it, so no.
Yeah.
It was just like, what? So awful.
So we just own it and do nothing with it, and it's on Spotify. We get this tiny bit of income from it.
Pennies, fractions of a penny.
But it's fine because he's dead. So
yeah, I mean, it'd be nice if his wife.
He wasn't going to get the money from it anyway.
Well, that was a weird off.
Yeah.
Random tangents there we got into, but
people.
So the album you selected for us today to talk about was released in 1994, and I thought we would at least take a look at a couple other records that came out that year as well. and then maybe even talk about some stuff that like if you would have been just assigned a regular year, what you would have considered as well. We noticed off the very top that the old Rate Your Music website says Weezer's Blue Album is the #1 punk record.
Most popular.
Yes, most popular. It just means the highest number of ratings.
All right.
35,000 ratings.
I got a bone to pick with Rate Your Music right now. They keep introducing new subgenres.
They do.
I'm looking at Weezer's Blue Album, and first of all, we've got power pop, alternative rock, pop punk. Pretty redundant there. And then to take it to the next level is geek rock, which I'm guessing they have added recently.
Yeah. AKA nerd rock, dork rock.
Really does not need to be a classification. I understand what they're referring to, but that is well summarized by it being power pop. That's music for nerds.
Yeah, they've added some other genres lately too, and I'm like, what? That's not a genre. What are you doing?
The big offender, most recent offender to me is stenchcore.
Yeah. I keep seeing melodic metalcore as a genre that keeps popping up, and then like everybody in the comments is like, "What? Melodic is a descriptor of a genre. It's there's no such genre as melodic metalcore. It's just metalcore that's melodic. It's not a thing."
Yeah, and that kind of like is at least half of metalcore.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was thinking the minute that you said that, I was like, what, like Shai Hulud? Is that who you're talking about?
That was the one that I noticed it on first. I was like,
okay.
What? But it's like applied to everything now. It's just dumb. 1994 is also the year of Dookie by Green Day, the record that changed the shape of major labels and what they're looking for. Again.
Yeah, just on the punk side, there is a lot of the Offspring Smash came out in 1994.
Absolutely. That's a classic record.
Yeah. And then NoFX's Punk and Drublick.
Yeah.
And then Bad Religion, Stranger Than Fiction. And then Jawbreaker, 24-Hour Revenge Therapy. So that's a pretty big year for that side of the punk, especially towards the pop punk, skate punk thing. Even the first Blink-182 album that came out, Buddha.
Yeah.
And those are all on and Rancid Let's Go. Jesus.
Yeah, it just kind of keeps going as far as like that kind of stuff.
Right. But then so with the band I chose, I was kind of, without saying who it is right now, but I was kind of thinking of the post-hardcore genre and kind of how it, once Fugazi came around and then people kind of like Fugazi, and then that got us to, I would say, well, not got us to, but then Helmet kind of came around, and then bands were kind of splitting off. Either they were combining the sound of Fugazi and Helmet, or they were taking more of one side of Helmet and one side more of Fugazi. Like I could see like some of the bands like I would going through this like Drive, like Jehu, I'd say more Fugazi, and then when you get to a band like there's like the band I picked. And there's actually even a Helmet album that came out in 1994. Betty came out.
Yeah.
And then there's, Today is Today, kind of on the Helmet side, more on the heavier side.
Yeah.
And then like
also like shrieky vocals.
Right. And then like you have your Jawbox, which is definitely, your Fugazi side, and Shudder to Think, and Unwound. So maybe this year was heavier in that way. And then I see there is also a Failure album came out, and that's kind of screwing back towards the Helmet side. There's a Jesus Lizard album, which is more on your noise, whatever you want to call it. And then that's only on the first page.
Yeah. Honestly, this first page is great.
Where would you place a Girls Against Boys?
I would say they are more. Oh God, they kind of ride the middle because of their lineage of going back to Soul Side and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because that sound is sorta in Boys Against Girls, but you also kind of get the syncopated rhythm of Helmet in some of the songs, but it's also kind of a dancey, sexy album.
Yeah.
And so that's something that's kind of totally their own. But yeah, and plus they're located in New York, so that might have skewed them more towards Helmet.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're kind of that'd be a tough one. It's not like Orange 9mm where you can be like Helmet or Handsome Helmet. You know, have to pick the hardest one.
That's the weird one. That's such a weird band. You're right. The dancey sexy. It's dancey sexy Fugazi.
Yeah, there's Unsane that goes on the New York noisier side of things too.
I also, when you get further down, there's a lot of once again Amphibian Reptile albums. There's a Hammerhead album, and that's definitely on the Helmet side and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, but
I'd say those tie closest with the album we're talking about today. I did also want to mention previously we have covered the year 1994, and we discussed Focused, Bow, and Shotmakers Believe In. That was the same episode. Then we did Madball and Milk Banana. Madball. Oh, I've said his name. Oh no, he's gonna appear.
We're definitely getting a call.
Oh no. We did that with Steve Doesn't.
The thing that is strange, there's an odd thing about 94 is I typically think of the early 90s as being, I feel like whenever we go deep on the charts in the early 90s, they tend to get pretty sparse pretty fast. But what is interesting to me about 94 is I'm 5 pages back on Rate Your Music, and there's an Avail record, an MXPX record, a Queers record, a Bouncing Souls record, a Strung Out record. So it really does. 94 really is like, not only is it the year that like mainstream attention centers on pop punk, thanks to, Green Day blowing up and Dookie coming out, but it really is just a year where a ton of bands put out records. Bands that had been around for a while up to that point, or would be around for a long time after this point, and kind of pops off. It's not expected.
It must be that like just that influx of cash, because like now there's like big label money into it. That also means back issue stuff is getting reissued on majors. So that then gives those minor those indie labels like, oh wow, well we got paid a bunch of money, so now we could put out even more stuff this year. And then that kind of, I don't know, like it's the rising tide raises all ships kind of scenario. Like the more money into the scene, the more bands are doing well on tour and selling copies of the records, and it's a cool year. 94 is a really cool year. I think we've looked before at like 95, and weirdly it takes a dip and then comes right back in 96, I think. And then 93, you'd think it would be a little higher than it is, but it's not quite as much. I don't think it can be underestimated how understated how much Green Day and The Offspring really, really helped just the amount of music coming out. I mean, hell, even Sunny Day Real Estate's Diary came out that year, and that's Sub Pop.
Yeah.
So there's money. There's another bigger label doing something there. So yeah, 94 is feels like a turning point year, which after 91 was a turning point year with more independent music. So yeah, 94, very interesting year. We also covered Jello Biafra and Mojo Dixon from 94. I don't think that was rising much tide there, but. Well, cool. Let's talk about the actual album you selected for us to talk about today. So, you gave us Sparkmarker Products and Accessories.
Recite 3 dreams, man. Repeat the second one. Replay the first one over till the first one runs out. Oh, you remember my best friend from the the second grade, friends till the end, till he stole my real best friend. Turn engines over, turn engines over, turn anger up, turn up, turn up. 'Cause he's sleeping with the TV on. Radio, motherfucker, radio. Radio, motherfucker, radio. Radio, motherfucker, radio. Motherfucker, radio. Radio, motherfucker, radio. Radio, motherfucker, radio. Radio, radio, radio. Oh, me.
I have a couple stats. This Sparkmarker were from Vancouver, British Columbia. They formed in 1990. This was released on Final Notice in 1994, which was their own record label. And the only other artist I recognized besides Sparkmarker on the Final Notice discography was Fleg Camp, who did a split with Fuel. So that's the main reason why I know that band. But this is the band's first full-length LP. We'll touch on that. It's a little bit it's a complicated record. And the personnel on this album is Jason Craig on bass, Kim Kinakin on guitar and vocals, Rob Zagaljic on drums. Apologies, Rob, mispronouncing your last name. And Ryan Scott on vocals. And the record was produced by Don Fury, who is a famous producer in the New York area who worked on Agnostic Front, Gorilla Biscuits, Youth of Today, and the new other stuff like Quicksand and Snapcase. And the Quicksand connection may be very important here, but I'll pause there with that and ask you, Jason, what made you select this album for us to talk about?
Well, with the thinking of the post-hardcore genre where this album definitely falls into, I was also thinking about what was going on in hardcore itself at the time. Like, certainly when you were going to the list, you saw your Madball and your Sick of It All, but there's also that Avail album came out, and there's also Groundwork came out, also Unbroken came out. Now, Unbroken and Groundwork are kind of more on the metal side, but there was more like straightforward metallic hardcore. Like you could kind of put Madball and Sick of It All in, and more of stuff that was metal influenced, but it was also super noisy. And then I was trying to think of kind of where that fell into where Sparkmarker comes in, where they're definitely doing the post-hardcore thing, but they're still considered a hardcore band. And like a lot of the bands they were playing with, they were probably they could probably play both with Sick of It All, and they could probably play with, I don't know, Drive Like Jehu maybe they could play with Heroin, a band like that. Any of the Discord bands going on around at the time. It was kind of just like at the time, this was kind of when I was first getting into punk and hardcore. On the hardcore side, this was the stuff I was really getting into, was bands like this that were on, on their own label, or they were on New Age, or they were on, Revelation. This is kind of the Revelation rock thing that comes out later, the kind of the Revelation emo a little bit. So I was trying to think of kind of like an album that I thought meshed it all together, and this was the one that I thought kind of covers it all. And
Dylan, have you ever heard Sparkmarker before, or even the name?
No, I'm not even gonna try and claim that I've heard this name before. I've heard the name. I don't think that I have. I think that it sounds like Boilermaker or Shotmaker or something like that, and I think that's what I'm just confusing it with. Total mystery to me.
Yeah, same. It's one of those names where I'm like, have I heard of that band? I definitely think I've seen the second LP's album cover before. That one I feel like I'd seen. But like I said, I don't think I knew what they sounded like. I was probably thinking the same thing, like, what are they, like, Arc Welder? But yeah. Yeah, so I was definitely like, okay, we're going in a territory that Dylan and I are not familiar with. Jason, do you remember when you were first introduced to this band?
Speaking of Trustkill, that Land of Greed, World of Need, or World of Need, Land of Greed comp, they are on that. They do not consider yourself free.
So I definitely have read their name before. Because I remember reading that compilations like track list before and being like, oh, cool. Which I actually listened to that today when I was doing research, because I saw it was on Spotify. If you scroll all the way down to the Sparkmarker, it shows like the compilations they appear on. I was like, I'll listen to that. Only a couple of them I feel like really sounded like the Embrace songs, but it's the ones you know, like the Dance of Days, those type of songs. But
right, yeah, when I was hanging out with some kid and he had it on CD, and so he taped it for me because I didn't have a CD player at the time, even in 1994. So I had a tape of it forever, and I listened to that thing over and over again because it was just like, this had all the bands that I wanted to hear on it, because it had, there was your Lifetime, your Current, your Avail. I can't remember who else was. Ashes is on it, and so those are like kind of the bands so anytime I saw, like when I'd go to a record store and I'd go to the ever dwindling tape side of it, I would pick out tapes of any band that was on it, except for like Farside. I was already really into Farside. Farside was kind of the band that got me, people might not these days consider them a hardcore band, but they were the band that got me into hardcore of the 90s, and then so it kind of just started from there. But like anything else on that comp, I picked up, and Sparkmarker was one of it. I got the CD. The first time it got out in vinyl was not until 2017, as you mentioned. So yeah, the CD was out. I didn't know vinyl was there. Final Notice was their old label, but I was looking at it. Yeah, there's nothing else I recognize.
Yeah.
On that thing, and
which
just
it's a tiny label that was formed specifically to put out their record, so it kind of makes sense why there's not a lot.
But the first thing I noticed is that one of the songs on it was on a No Idea comp, which is actually a song from a 7-inch that came out on No Idea, because there's 3 7-inches that came out. There's the Atomos, and then there's one that starts with K, and then there's the Scollin, which is Sean Scollin, that he's named after. He was a photographer in the Canada area that took up a lot of pictures that you probably saw in Heart Attack if you read Heart Attack back then. And so those 3 sets of 7 inches are all on the album. And then plus an earlier one is also on the album too. And so their first 7 inches. There's only one that's missing. The Jiffy 7 inch isn't on there, I think.
Right. So I actually found that this is a weird release because there's some conflicting information. Ultimately, I think it's a compilation in a way that you described it as it's like a Finding the Rhythms. It's like it's a compilation, but people listen to it like a record. So the EPs are 92's EP Plug, which was on Selfless Records. Their 93 EP Gerberick, which was on Final Notice. Their other 93 EP Scollin, which you mentioned, was on Heart First. And Atomos in 94 was on No Idea. I think Atomos, Scollin, and Gerberick are all named after specific people too. I think Gerberick, I think, did the artwork for Gerberick, I think is how that went. And then Atomos, I can't remember who that was, but they were involved in also helping the record get made. So the reason why I said it's a little bit of a confusing release, it's because I went and found this. It was like a Noisy article. I think it was around the time when the vinyl reissue came out, and the writer said that he knew the band, like he was friends with them at the time, and that this record contains 5 previously released tracks, and which were the band produced the other songs and then sent it to Don Fury to have him remix it. But if you look at every single one of those 7 inches, Don Fury worked on all of them and produced all of them and engineered them. So this person, there's a chance that the other songs, the 8 songs on here, are maybe re-recorded, but they were previously released. So almost everything on here was previously released. There may be like only 1 or 2 that was not on another 7-inch or a compilation. So I don't know. You can notice though when you hit Kansas on here, there is an audible difference in recording quality. So at the very least, those for sure are from a different session.
Also on the CD, it's not on Spotify, and I doubt if it's on the vinyl, but if after the final track you go to I believe it's 2 minutes and 20 seconds. There's a 15-minute audio track which is about subliminal messaging. I believe that's this one because all 3 of their CD releases have an extra track.
Yeah.
And I believe it's this one because I remember the static that begins one of the songs is also the same static they use in the extra track. But yeah, it's really trippy. It's kind of like, I wonder if it's like from a coast to coast interview, coast to coast AM type interview. Because
Art Bell.
Yep, exactly. It might have came from there, but yeah, it's really weird. But it's one of those things where you kind of put it on at night, and then the CD's done, and next thing you know, you're waking up because somebody's talking to you about messages and movies and stuff like that.
Which is a great thing to put at the end of an album, just because it's like, this came out in '94 on CD, and that's like, is that the beginning of when those like hidden tracks start to appear on CDs?
I would assume so.
Because it's like, there. We have all this extra CD, we could put literally anything on here, and which it was neat for the time, but it's a trend that I'm glad died and stopped being a thing. Because once you knew it was there, you would just be like, all right, I would at least hold fast track until you start to hear that, and you have to go back to the beginning of it. Oh, I hit it. Go back.
The worst aggression of it is the people that put the hidden track before the first track.
Yeah.
And made it like a negative one. Oh, man. Because people they'd be like, oh, have you heard that? There's this extra song on it, dude. But you got to go to the first song and go back. It's like, what?
Don't go back too far, because then it'll just go to the last track. Yeah. Depending on your CD player, like some CD players wouldn't even let you go backwards. Like it was just, it was a mean trick to play, because it's like not everybody could get it. At least with the other stuff, you're like, you forgot there was a hidden track, and then it's all of a sudden yelling at you. But honestly, how often was it worth it? That extra hidden track.
I think you covered them. My Precious Blood. If you ever get the CDs of theirs, their extra tracks are amazing. They are the funniest, dumbest things you've ever heard in your life. Where, like, they recorded a phone call because they were looking for, I believe, a singer at the time. This is where they're in between. And in the background, they have like this loop sound of smashing glass. So when the guy's talking, he's hearing all the smashing glass. And then I can't remember. I believe it's Justin. He's talking on the phone, and he's just totally ignoring it. Just keeps asking the guy, how's it going? What can you do for us? And then they talk about when they're in Vegas. And they were talking about, how they blew all their money on coke, even though they were like a straight edge band at the time. They're really, probably for about 5 years, all my humor pretty much came from the extra tracks on most Precious Blood CDs.
I have heard some of those, and they are shockingly funny, because they're crank calls for the most part.
Yep.
And my favorite one is the one where they call like the pizza place, and the guy just answers the phone like, hello? And he's like, what? Is that how you answer the phone at a business? What are you doing? It's just like, is this the pizza place? He's like, yeah. He's like, what? You don't just say hello.
My wife was just complaining about that recently. Someone answering the phone. It was like someone putting you on hold and then picking up, and they're just like, hey. That's not what you say.
Yeah.
You say, thank you for holding. You say, you might say hello. Sorry about that. Not, hey, you there?
Hey. That's what you do with your friends or your wife. Hey. Dylan, I want you to talk about this record. What did you think of this? What are your thoughts on this album as far as how it sounds and everything?
When I put it on, I was like, oh, this is a hardcore record. I thought it was going to be something different. I don't think Justin told me what it was. And then I think my next observation was, sounds like Snapcase with Mark Salomon.
Who is Mark Salomon?
Mark Salomon
an appropriate question.
Was the vocalist of the Christian rock band Stavesacre, who was previously the vocalist of like one of the first Christian hardcore bands, The Crucified. A great vocalist, killer voice, and kind of I thought one of a kind in this style, in like hard music of the kind of quicksand influenced variety.
Off of that, I also wrote that this guy sounds like a mix of Guy from Fugazi and Mark Salomon. So Dylan and I both picked up on the Salomon vocal style, which musically too, there are some Stavesacre similarities going on here, but that could be more the quicksand influence. But continue, Dylan.
But yeah, overall, I enjoyed it. I think it's a cool sound. I think it's like listening to it within a few songs, I was like, if I was in a hardcore band again, this is what I would want to do. I wouldn't want to scream. I would want to do that kind of voice. You know, maybe on the edges, like you get that little bit of, but I would want to do that deep, larynx dropped, like full Danzig kind of like voice in a hardcore band, especially like this kind of like sort of like syncopated, like lurching, a little sloppy hardcore sounding riffs. I think that's really cool combination. There's not enough bands that come close to this.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the feel of this entire album. There's this, it feels very 90s in the sense that there was a lot of really heavy and really abrasive sounding music in the 90s, and in a truly abrasive way, unlike metal technically is abrasive, but I've never felt that the extreme metal is really that much abrasive. I feel like in noise and in the further extremities of like post-hardcore, you found more abrasive stuff. Screamo too as well. So there's like, even though he's not doing a scream or like a straight up hardcore yell, he has this really cool voice that's maybe not abrasive, but at least unsettling in some ways. Like I really enjoyed this vocal style.
It has a dead guy quality of feeling like you're actually getting yelled at by someone who's actually mad, and not someone who's doing a Cookie Monster voice or something like that.
So like I was going through it, I listened to it I think yesterday. I was going through it again just to make sure what I could talk about. This song Kansas is my favorite song on there. I mean, I'm not a guy, as you can probably tell, I'm not a guy that works out, but if I was one of those guys that wanted to get pumped, Kansas, that would be the song, just that opening, that and then does the push-pull rhythm. Oh man, that just gets me going. I sit there in my work seat and I'm all hyped up and ready to do some typing. But I was, the other, it's just, there's definitely the quicksand thing going on, but I was also hearing more stuff that was on more of the, I guess, early screamo side. I guess I was hearing a lot of Shotmaker in there. I was seeing they're probably more contemporaries at the time than they were, one influenced the other. I was hearing, just kind of more. I was hearing the Snapcase thing as well. Thank God they didn't have that snare sound that Snapcase has. But yeah, it was just. If you ever go on to their next album, there's a different guy singing, so it's a totally different kind. He kind of sounds like this singer, but he's got more of a Jarl going on. And the album itself is it's still in the vein of quicksand post-hardcore, but it's a little bit more rockin'. You can kind of tell, I don't know if they were going for something, but you can kind of tell there was more of a alternative rock influence on it. It's still a pretty good album. but it's just not as good as this one, which I've never really considered. I always considered this a comp. I probably will always be that person. Same thing with Finding the Rhythms. That will always be a comp to me. So I always, it's not their first album.
Yeah.
But technically now it is.
Yeah. It's a weird thing to be like. I get why they did it, because they were like, the 7-inches were probably done. They didn't want to repress anything like that, you know. If they got it remixed or remastered, it makes sense to be like, all right, let's do something, you know, with it. So I get it. I get why they did it. And they didn't have any CDs before this either. There were, well,
no,
I don't think there was. No, there was a cassette version of Plug. It was like a demo version. But yeah, everything else was a 7-inch, or they were on a compilation. Yeah, the quicksand sound, the Fugazi sound, the helmet. There's a helmet sound on here for sure, which I hear on Sleeping with the TV On, which I really like that song.
Yeah.
Is he yelling Mother Hubbard in that song?
I guess I'm gonna look up the lyrics, but
it sounds like that's what he's saying.
Like going back to Kansas, that song has to be about like a single dad, because he mentions going to a tractor pull, and he talks about macaroni and cheese in it, and how he's thankful for all these things. So it's like, thank God these things are here because the kids are here. That's kind of what I'm getting. I know they're saying that we're halfway because, you know, Kansas, I guess, sort of is halfway, you know. So I don't know if they were like in a car and they were like meeting somebody, or they're dropping off the kids to another parent.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get a single dad vibe off that song every time I hear it.
And single dads love Kansas. I really enjoyed the song Memoranda. That was the third track on here. They do the two vocalist thing, which is the Fugazi thing. But really, I was reminded of the Sarah Kirsch band's things. This was more like a Fuel to me, like the way they sang over each other.
Right.
Which, you know, Hot Water Music would do later on their first couple albums. Just the way they sang over top of each other in a way that it just hits my ear in such a pleasing fashion. I love the Fugazi singing over each other thing, but it doesn't quite hit the same way as like Chuck and Chris, or, you know, Sarah and whoever she was singing with at the time.
That's because Guy and Ian have such like different vocal voices from each other. Like Chuck and the other guy, sorry,
Chris.
Chuck and Chris, they kind of sound alike, especially earlier. And the two people singing here on the Sparkmarker, I think, you know, they kind of sound alike a little bit, but it's like you can always tell when it's Guy, and you can always tell when it's Ian.
Yeah, is that what do you call it? Is that phase, where they kind of like their voices almost phase together? Am I using my music recording knowledge appropriately?
I mean, it's kind of a similar effect. But it's really just more of the tonalities are so similar that you're just nothing's phase canceling as in terms of like the signal, like the waves are opposite of each other, so they're canceling each other out. But yeah, it's not it's kind of, they're too similar that they're just indistinguishable.
Yeah, they hit this like frequency or tone that kind of makes it sound in harmony.
Yeah. Only
for that moment, you know. It's a really cool thing. The bass work on this record too is outstanding. Like, I feel like the bass is one of the instruments on here that stands out on its own more than really anything else on here, because there's two guitars and right, or is there only one guitar?
I think there's
it's just the one. I don't know, just the bass stand out more to me more so than like the drums or guitars do. Maybe that's because like the bass is given a lot of like solo time, or at least where it's like it's playing but no guitar is playing, or it's like maybe a little bit of just like a little hit on the China drum or something like that, China cymbal or something like that. But the way he plays bass on here is just really cool, and really, I guess you could put that in with the Fugazi.
Yeah, the bass playing is more of the DC post-hardcore kind of bass playing, and it's not that I feel like it's not that rubbery bass playing that was so common in hardcore at this time. where it was just like, we've got this bass player who's just like, all over the place, really bendy, and like has that really active tone, that Jaco, the Pastorius jazz bass tone.
Is that the one that's like the where you can't hear the pluck or the strum, where it's just like the mwah, 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 like that?
Yeah. It's the like, yeah.
It sounds
This
like a
guy
synth.
is super proud that he plays with his fingers, just has like no transients, no slap, no grind. It's just like, it's a hardcore band, not a prog metal band.
Yeah, it is the prog metal version of bass being played in a hardcore band. Is super duper weird. I don't know where that came in and why that was a thing for a minute. Because I feel like the bass in the 90s almost dates stuff worse than any of the other instruments. Because a lot of times you can be like, oh yeah, the production, yeah, this was clearly a 90s record, but like the effects and tones and pedals that they were using on basses and like between like 90 and 94 were just like, what?
I feel like it comes from metal, because I feel like the bass player in a metal band is not listening to like no wave records where they're like, oh yeah, I'm like into jazz bass playing. Like I feel like it feels like a metal guy thing. He's like into joins a hardcore band because he can't get into a metal band.
Yeah. Well, this was the time where it's like you were like, well, I play guitar and we know this kid that plays drums and he's really into Red Hot Chili Peppers. But I know this bass player, but he's in a metal band, but I think we can get him to play for us. And that's kind of how the band, started. It was kind of who's ever in like a 5-block radius of where you lived.
Yeah.
Well,
played with.
We sound real funky, but we don't really have anybody else to play with. And all those grunge bands had funk parts on their records too.
Did they ever?
With gravity's pull to the weekend, drown in the deep end. 1350 tractor pull will be a godsend. His diet's fish sticks, her diet's lipstick. So dying they stick to what they know.
I really like just about everything about this record, and I was kind of curious just to see. I was like, what do people think about this band? And there's not a ton of writing about them, but I did find this really interesting. If you go to the Sparkmarker Facebook page and you scroll back to about 2017, where the vinyl reissue was coming together, so leading up to the release. And on it, they had done this thing where they like reached out to people they knew and just asked them to say something. And so they call them reflections on Sparkmarker and or products and accessories. And so the people that they got to like write something, they got Dave Verellen from Botch and Narrows to write something about it and talking about like going up to the Velvet Elvis in Seattle and like seeing them play there, and how they really kind of helped. It kind of blew him away. Like there's a really funny. He said when Sparkmarker broke into character 1, My size 42 fucked jeans started emo wiggling so hard I almost lost my backwards Etnies ball cap. You picking up what I'm laying down? And then he says, all Tim and Tim Latona and I could talk about was, what the hell is that snare drum? And he said Rob Zagaljic had a 20-inch deep marching snare or something like that. But like other people they talked to, they got Bull from Policy of Three. We have some other musicians I don't know. Patty Duddy from DOA. We have Chad Peterson from Strife.
Okay.
So like there is this history, or there are these kind of like people who went on to be pretty big, like Dustin Hawthorne, the bassist of Hot Hot Heat, like talks about it. They got Don Fury to say something as well, but the drummer of Pelican is on here too. It's just like this really cool like string of these people just being like, when I first saw Sparkmarker, and it's just their little recollections about, you know, seeing them and like hearing all these people talk about it. It's really cool to see how big of a deal they were to a certain type of, I don't know, person or musician, because a lot of these people, it looks like they were in the Northwest, so that really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You know, if they weren't in Canada themselves, they came down and played in Washington a lot and Portland and stuff like that. So they feel borderline regional, and I think they even kind of have this like cred as being known as like Canada's version of Quicksand or Fugazi at the time, which is interesting. I meant to ask someone else, one of our good friend who lives in Canada, who's currently living in British Columbia, if he knows anything about Sparkmarker, if they mean anything to him. But it's also a little before his time, so I don't know if he does. But
so we now have the Swedish Quicksand, Fireside, and now we have the Canadian Quicksand. We're getting all the countries. Sparkmarker did tour, because they did play. I know it was July 4th. I don't know if it was 95 or 96. They played in Minneapolis with Threadbare, and I believe it was Threadbare's last show. That was in Minneapolis. It was a place called Studio of the Stars, which I mentioned when I was on before, which is right by the Triple Rock. I didn't get to go. I had to do family things, I believe I remember, even though I was over 18. I was either that or my car, which probably did not work at the time, and I couldn't go. But yeah, I remember seeing the flyer, because I believe I picked up that flyer at like Extreme Noise or something. I'm like, I gotta go to this. This is Threadbare's last show, and Sparkmarker. I love Sparkmarker. Didn't have. So I know they toured. I don't know how far they got though. I would assume they got down to Florida.
Yeah, there are some. If you look at that page, they've got flyers. Like, so it's funny because this account seems like it just turned into like a historical, you know, piece to talk about stuff. But there's a New Jersey flyer where they played with Rye Coalition and Muzzle and Fisticuffs Bluff. And
Fisticuffs Bluff were from, I think, Colorado.
Oh, wow.
Been at tour at the time too.
Yeah.
I found the Sparkmarker Threadbare Harvest July 4th poster.
There. What does it sound? It probably doesn't say what year.
No.
Yeah. So,
I found one that they played with. Oh, where'd it go?
You get the show flyers. They played with Face to Face and All Effects.
Wow.
I saw that tour, but Sparkmarker was not on it.
They played something called the Velvet Elvis Annual Showcase, and they did 3 nights, and they played with Murder City Devils, Waxwing, and Vade and Shark's Kill.
Yeah. So I see the Minneapolis one. Yeah, Default. They were a 3-piece kind of hardcore band in Harvest. That must have been way early Harvest.
They did something called as another Velvet Elvis Fest, and they played on Sunday, and Sparkmarker, Balance of the World, Greg Bennick, and Botch played on that show.
Greg Bennick's the lead singer of Trial. He used to do kind of a spoken word thing.
Oh, yeah. It's really cool. Like they've got a lot of these up here. I don't know where this one is. There's a UK one. So, they got to Scotland too. So they played Nice and Sleazy with Canvas and August. And Canvas was a Leeds, a fresh-faced, straight-edge hipsters, and August was Chaos and Metal rule their world. I love the old flyer way of just like actually like making a comment on the band, not just being like X Maximilian Kolbe, like it because the Sleepy Time Trio played.
Yeah.
400 years X
400
groundwork.
years.
Yeah, it's cool. They
played with Seaweed. I'm seeing here a couple times, and that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
the Seaweed being
Tacoma.
from Tacoma.
Yeah. Dylan, this is a Dylan thing. Do you ever pull up commercial blocks and regularly get them from Tacoma?
I've seen a few Tacoma blocks.
There's like a block of time between like 88 and like 91 where I guess just that person taped a ton of stuff off TV and then it got uploaded to YouTube, and so it was like it's the same channel a lot, just Tacoma channels. So that was really funny.
Yeah, there's a couple of Pacific Northwest blocks that I'll see a lot of, like Coeur d'Alene, and like there's like a Spokane Valley one that I'll see a lot.
Yeah.
So after the lead singer left, he started the band Deadsure, have you ever seen the No Idea, whatever, the Fest 7 DVD?
There's a DVD for Fest 7?
I think 7 or 8. It's the only DVD they have.
And they film every single year.
Yes.
They have cameras there in every venue, or not every, but most, and like they don't do anything with the footage most of the time.
Yeah, because like I remember I have the DVD somewhere. I was trying to find it today so I could pull it up, but it's either 7 or 8, and they have one song from each band that played. So there's like 40 tracks on it, but Deadshure's on it, and Deadshure, it's only the lead singer, and then he's singing this song about being attacked by a bear, the music's behind him because the band isn't there. Somehow the band maybe they got stuck at the border, and then a bear comes out and attacks them. So if anyone's seen that DVD, they know what I'm talking about. Yeah, but that's the lead singer of Sparkmarker.
Is that DVD called Fested: A Journey to Fest 7?
I don't think so.
Because there's one of those. It says the musical release captures the most memorable moments and performances from the 2008 Summer Punk Rock Summer in October festival in Gainesville, Florida, with concert footage from American Steel, Dear Landlord, OK Pilot, Spanish Gamble, Hour of the Wolf.
That's
so there's
too late. It's Fest 3 from 2006.
Oh, Fest 3. Oh, wow. Okay, that's different. But now I kind of want to see this Fested 7, Journey to Fest 7, because I was at Fest 7, and I saw Hour of the Wolf, and that venue was pretty small. So I'm kind of curious now if I'm on this DVD somewhere. But I bet I could bet it's on YouTube. Let me look that up real quick. Well, I'm not going to pay $11 for a DVD.
Yeah, so this Fest 3, they have it divided up by the venues, which is Common Grounds, the Sidebar, and the Atlantic. Those are like I guess there's only 3 venues. Now there's like how many?
Yeah, they keep changing names too, but yeah, there's trailers for it, but the whole thing's not on YouTube. Annoying. Might have to buy a $11 DVD off of eBay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so there was an interesting period too. So I read that the lead singer had left the band, and then they played shows where Kim Kanakin did all the vocals.
I think he might be the singer on their last album too. It might be but if I remember looking at pictures, I remember there was either 4 or 5 guys sitting there. There's
they did get another vocalist named Jordan. I forget the last name, who I think actually passed away. Yeah, Jordan. Let me pull that up. Jordan Studdard, who, as far as I know, I think passed away. But it's just interesting. When you change a vocalist in a band, you really run the risk of losing that thing that made them so special.
Right, unless you're like All, where you get 3 guys that kind of sound the same. But yeah, so Jordan kind of sounds like this, whatever, the lead singer. I know like their whole thing was Sparkmarker. They just put in their first names and that's it for who's in the band, but you never could figure out who was who unless you saw them. So I can never tell who. I knew Kim played like guitar. But then,
the Noisy article is where I found who played what.
Okay.
Because he actually knew them. This was reissued on Indecision Records in 2017, which is an interesting label to do a reissue for it.
Not really. There's a couple things on there that kind of fit. There's a 7-inch by a 7-inch, I know, but there's a 7-inch by a band called Dempsey, which was ex Undertow.
Oh, okay.
That's really in this, and then there's also the Kill Holiday split with Dempsey. That's very much in the Helmet vein before they went into a shoegaze band. So yeah, those two, but yeah, it was mostly more metallic hardcore, and then they did a lot of like straightforward melodic hardcore like Faded Gray and not Crossed Out, Count Me Out.
Oh yeah,
and stuff like that.
And then, they released 500 Watt Burner at 7 on Crisis Records in 97, and then they broke up in 97. So I don't know if they recorded it thinking they were going to be done, but...
Crisis is a sub-label of Revelation Records.
Oh, okay. There was a reissue as well of... It's like a compilation. It's called Treasure Chest 1990 to 1997. That's on Revelation.
Yeah. That has most of the stuff that is a lot of demos... I think it has Kim singing on it, maybe. And then a lot of kind of stuff that came out after the original singer left. But I think he's on there too also, but most of it is.
There's, they put the Embrace cover on there. They did the Do Not Consider Yourself Free. And there's a song on there called Nardwuar versus The Collar, and I didn't look that up, but I kind of want to hear what that is. It's only 55 seconds.
Yeah, I think it must have been someone called in on the Nardwuar show, and Nardwuar probably went off on him, as he's known to do if you've ever listened to Nardwuar before.
Okay, so this actually gives you the notes too. So it says, gives you like the track breakdown. Track 5 is from Scallon. Track 6 is from the Mystery Machine Sparkmarker Split. Track 7 is from Felidae, a benefit for the Cedar Hill Animal Sanctuary. Track 9 is from Big Pants Waste Precious Fabric Comp, the Land of Greed Comp. Tracks from Jiffy and a comp called This Is My World.
I've heard the Big Pants one. That's on No Idea.
Okay.
So
it's like the other stuff. I guess they were like, we already have the other songs collected on. We don't need to reissue those. But and it's interesting. It has something on here. It says bonus tracks Life After Sparkmarker. I think it's like the projects they started after.
Huh. I would have to listen to it. I have it. I don't. I get that one. That's on Spotify. I don't listen to it a lot because it's. To me, I guess it's just not very good. There's just the songs themselves.
Earlier stuff, yeah.
Earlier stuff, and then you get a couple, a cover and some other stuff. So it was just one of those things that I was more excited when I saw it was coming out, and then when you hear it, you're like, oh.
Yeah, comps are a mixed bag because it could be like, oh, this is amazing, or it could just be like, this is too rough for me to enjoy. Well, Dylan, do you have any closing thoughts on the album? Any final words?
Not really. I think it's a pretty cool record. It does run together a little bit. That was my kind of like negative point on it. But I think the overall sound and style is really something that's really interesting. It's cool to hear a band from this era, really a band from this era that I've never heard before or never really heard of before, playing this style. Because I feel like I know this sound pretty well, but a couple of them slipped through apparently.
Yeah. If I were to rate it, I'd probably give it like on the 5-star scale, I'd probably give it like a 3.75. I think the fact that it is a little bit of a compilation takes away some of the cohesion of it, but overall, like, it's a really good batch of songs, and I really enjoyed what they were doing. Really cool stuff. But yeah, we really appreciate you sponsoring this episode.
No problem. It's always fun to come in and do these. I might do another one in the future. I just got to figure out when I want to do it and what I want to do it on. I think it's best if I pick what I want to do it on before putting in the money for it and then forget about it.
Yeah, because when you messaged me and you said, "Oh yeah, I forgot I get one of these." Yeah, and it's always more fun when you're inspired by it too. That's how Dave works. When he does it, he says he's like, "Oh, I was listening to it and I said we should do this," and send it over. But we appreciate them, and we'll plug that. We'll plug that on the intro to the show. But all right, well, we appreciate you coming on and talking with us. This was a really good one. We thank you.
Yeah, thanks guys. We'll talk to you guys later.